All right, so this is our second PanOpto on Chapter 4.
Yeah.
Jake.
I'm Armando.
So reading affects all. So according to the text, students who are good at reading are generally good at math, and that applied to students good at writing too. And the flip side to that coin is if students perform very poorly in reading and writing, it kind of transfers over to math. CLR provided focus on building literacy skills in order to bring these students to level in reading and in math. And it focuses on two specific areas, academic literacy and academic language.
And academic language is covered in Chapter 6, so we didn't actually really go in depth on that. So academic literacy is performed through lens of text. Text refers to all types of print, including fiction, nonfiction, newspapers, magazines, etc. Three objectives that define the use of text in CLR instruction. To engage students with culturally and linguistically responsive text, to use engaging read-alouds in the oral tradition of cultural storytelling, and to use effective literacy strategies responsibly.
So this is just continuing the same slide. The use of CLR text is used to help the student draw an understanding into their own experiences in order to understand the language and concepts from school. The more aware the students are of this relationship, the students can develop their academic literacy.
Engaging students with CLR text. So most, if not all, pieces of CLR text in mandated curricula are tokenistic. This is if you are even able to find texts that are culturally responsive. Most of the texts that were found, like that were said in the chapter, that were meant to be culturally responsive were old and out of date, and actually sounds pretty good.
So real quick, those texts that were old and out of date, just so you guys kind of have a perspective, it was like from the 50s and 40s, right?
Yeah,
like,
or even from the 90s for that matter.
Yeah.
These things change very often.
Very old texts.
Whatever you call it, yeah.
Did you get your field trip report done for tomorrow?
I haven't finished it, but it won't take long.
Please. So culturally responsive teaching is a pedagogy that recognizes the importance of infusing the students' cultural references in all of their learning.
We actually talked to Rick about this in one of the later slides as well.
Right, we see it on a K through 12 level all the time, and we see teachers trying to make sure that their students are getting the key knowledge that adds their culture into it. We see it also inside the classroom as well on a college level. Brown University actually has a department focusing on culturally responsive teaching as an important aspect of student development. Well, my friends, I don't know if you can tell by the beautiful face that I put on for you today. I used some great moisturizer. But I've been working in student development and higher education for about 12 years now. And what I do recognize is as important and essential it is to be culturally responsive in the classroom, it is even more so to make sure that we are representing our students' cultural influences and their representation outside of the classroom. And what that means to me is that we have to have a conversation about student development and student leadership. I'm just going to give you a few items, a few tidbits, a few points that are going to help us understand what we need to do to better recognize how to do so. So the first thing I want to talk to you about is raising the level of your communication. We have to have authentic conversations with our young folks, and not just our young folks, but anyone who considers themselves a student. The conversations have to be not only authentic, but they have to be raised at another level. And for me, when I think about communication, the first thing that comes to mind is hip hop. I'm a hip hop head, grown up in that era, and the thing that I remember is a great DJ. If you've ever been to a party that had a terrible DJ, you already know what happens. The blending is not right. The sound is a little bit off. The DJ's not on time. See, culturally responsive leadership, because that's what we're going to be talking about, is saying we can be the DJs in the leadership spaces. That means we have to not blend the two sounds together or blend the two students together. That doesn't mean that we have to make sure that the party's always turned up. We have to make sure that our students are turning out into our spaces of cultural development every single day. See, I'm a hip-hop head. I told y'all this. So another thing that I also love about hip-hop and the original elements is graffiti art. And what I love about graffiti art is that graffiti art is this representation of colors when everyone thought it was only supposed to be black and white. Now, what does that have to do with cultural development and culturally responsive leadership? I'll tell you, we have to start diversifying our views. Our student leaders are not one color, one gender, one type of individual. For us to be culturally responsive and responsible as leaders, as educators, as students, you know what we have to do? We have to start getting our spray cans out and changing the colors, reaching the spaces and the places that you never thought you could reach. You ever see graffiti art? Sometimes it's moving across trains. Sometimes it's on the top of high towers and you wonder, how did they get those beautiful colors there? See, I told y'all I'm a hip-hop head, and what I love about hip-hop also is breakdancing. And see, breakdancing was a little thing in my house that we could not do because my mom, she's a Haitian woman that said we're not going to be breakdancing anything in this house. But they were the risk takers. For you to be a culturally responsive educator, you have to take a risk. You cannot be this individual that is stuck in your standard ways, thinking that I can just go in my merry way and be fine and dandy. You have to take a risk. You have to go to a place that you never thought you could reach. You have to go to a left when they always told you that right was the way to go. See, I told you I love hip-hop and its importance and its relationship to culturally responsive teaching and education and leadership. I can't say enough about the fact that I'm also an MC. When I think about culturally responsive leadership and its effect and its impact on communication, I always say, see, I was born in an era where crack was attacking blacks and rap on the map and quickly adapted to that, and hat to the back was cool in the city schools and nothing tougher than T, and I pity the fools, overzealous storytellers reciting their bars out of this world like Spike when he was Mars, was going far into Boston across colors, and Mike Tyson was still nicer than all the others. It was a time when Buster was raw-barring and Air Jordan was scoring often versus Boston. Satisfaction the way the Jacksons acted, Sam acted a crackhead but still made it happen. My versatile flow is like Jesse Michael and Bo, so you know that I must be hot. Words paint the canvas like I'm Basquiat, now tell me now you ready or not. See, that's authentic. 16 bars, I still got some bars left. Don't get it twisted, y'all. But we've got to be able to have authentic conversations. See, the MC was somebody that was able to go off the top of their head or tell a story, because we need storytellers. We need to make sure that the important messages that are happening right in front of our face are moving along in history. We cannot be stuck in one space, and that's why the communication levels have to go up. See, can I tell y'all another thing about culturally responsive leadership? This is what I call trill EDU. We keeping it trill, right? When I talk about culturally responsive leadership, we have to start thinking about how do we reshape our leadership curriculum, a model for social change and leadership and so forth and so on. And the reason why I scoff a little bit about that is because that model was introduced in 1993. And there's nothing wrong with being introduced in 1993. But you know who else was also around in 1993? Sears. I'll tell you who else was the biggest and the baddest in 1993? Macy's. Blockbuster Video. The biggest and the baddest in 1993. And then all of a sudden, something happened. There was a reshape in the culture. And those places just weren't quite ready. And as educators, we have to be ready. We can't be those individuals that are stuck in the past, that have not innovated. Right? Because innovation, my friends, it's oxygen. For you to truly breathe, to catch a breath, you have to completely be involved and be in love with the idea of not only embracing the past, but making sure that every step of the present and the future is paid attention to and evolving on a day-to-day. See, I'm from New York City. And as a New Yorker, things that are synonymous with my beautiful city are slices of pizza, the Empire State Building, rudeness. That's not true. That last part, that's just not true. But you know what's also synonymous with New York City? Our yellow cabs. And about 7 or 8 years ago, a New York City yellow cab was worth $1.3 million. That means if you wanted to drive a yellow cab in New York, you had to have $1.3 million. Today, my friends, 7 years later, it is worth $250,000. They got left. They got left. My father used to say, listen, if y'all are not downstairs by 8:15 a.m., y'all are getting left. And I used to say, no way we're getting left. We'll be all right. Every morning we went down there, my mother, my sister, and I, and we said, we'll be fine. We go downstairs, right? And then we'll be all good. Until that one morning, my mom took her time that day. And it was about 8:16. And I said, Mom, we are about to get left. And I lived in the hood, so you know the elevators were slow. And there was always a super trying to ask us, was the water still hot? So we gotta go. My dad's about to leave. I got outside, and that car was gone. And I first thought, man, I was like, what kind of parenting is this? I gotta go to school in the morning. But then my dad played a trick on us. He pulled around the corner and said, I told y'all, at any time you can't get left. And I said, whoa. That showed me, my friends, that not only can I get left by that car, but I can get left in any particular space that I occupy, and so can you. And that's why we must innovate. That's why we must continue to change. That's why we must continue to adapt to all the different things. Listen, I hear you. You may not be on Snapchat, or you may not be posting Instagram stories, but if you consider yourself an educator, you better understand what those terms even mean. You better understand what the new Snapchat update means to your students. You need to understand if your students are watching Netflix or not. But beyond all of those things, you need to understand the pains and the struggle that your students are going through. When students are telling you, listen, my pronouns are him, or he, or her, or they, if you're not being culturally responsive, you know what you're doing? You're getting left. You have to understand from all points of the walk. What does it mean to be leaders, to be change agents, right? Now, third thing that I always talk about, if you don't mind me going to my notebook, because I'm a writer, I'm a poet, so sometimes I like to keep my words close to me. And when I think about this last thing I want to talk to you about, I talk about redefining the definition of what it means to be an educator. See, you're an educator. There are people in this room that are my students. They're my educators. There are people in this room that are older than me. They're my educators. There are people in this room that I've never even met in my life, and they are my educators. You know what? They are also my students. I'm also a student to them. We have to redefine the idea of what it means to be an educator if we truly want to be culturally responsive in our educational process. Everyone is an educator. That's what we call it the Trill EDU way. Everyone is an educator. But in the same regards, everyone is also a student. We're not in this space where we're going to live in these hierarchies where one person, because they have X amount of degrees or X amount of experience, is automatically the expert in every particular field. There are people that are way more knowledgeable to me than me, rather, in science or the math fields or maybe even literature as well. But there's spaces that we can all learn together, and that's what culturally responsive education and leadership is. Today, we always fight to figure out where can we find leaders. So often I have college students come to me and they say, Jeff, I don't know what to do after I graduate. Jeff, I can't find a job in my major. Jeff, I'm struggling to recognize what happens next. And I say, you know what? We didn't do a good enough job being culturally responsive to you. We did not prepare you for the innovations that are happening outside of your space. And that's what we have to do. If we want to change education, and my friend, that's what I'm here to do. This is not me having a conversation with you. This is me announcing the movement to reshape and change the idea of education. This is not just me announcing this movement, but I always go to my notebook because it has influences to me, and I go to this quote by one of my favorite people in history. You might have heard of her. She goes by the name of Harriet Tubman. And what Harriet Tubman once said was, "I grew up a neglected weed, ignorant of liberty, having no experience of it." I grew up a neglected weed. So many of our students right now are being neglected by educators who are not prepared to be culturally responsive. We have so many students that are ignorant of leadership because our educators are choosing not to be culturally responsive. But you know what I love about that quote is that although she was a neglected weed, although she was ignorant of liberty, somehow, some way, she made multiple trips, over 5 to 9 trips, back and forth, to identify something she didn't even know existed. Imagine that. Imagine finding leadership, finding something that you didn't even know existed. You had no mindset of this thing in the future. But Harriet Tubman told you we're going to find freedom. So what we're going to do today is make this commitment to find leadership freedom. To find the existence that is going to push us to a space of cultural responsibility and responsiveness. This is where we announce the movement. This was day one. And there's many more days to come. So let's band together. Let's find what education truly means. Let's be culturally responsive. Let's innovate and find our oxygen. Thank you very much.
And we had, just because of this, teachers are responsible for finding culturally responsive texts in order to engage students with them. Right. So, like he was saying, you got to be culturally responsive. You have to be in the now in order to keep students engaged. And there are 3 different types of culturally responsive texts that teachers must be aware of.
So texts such as this go in depth on the roles, traditions, beliefs, and other aspects of a specific culture. Texts such as this speak on potential struggles for freedom of a certain culture.
Culturally generic texts. Culturally generic texts deal with potential people of different races, but not with different culture. The only culture that is discussed in these kinds of texts are national cultures, and the characters generally are not really the focus. And it gave a couple of examples, but the next slide probably is more elaborate.
Yeah. So these kind of texts are widely regarded as not appropriate for CLR. They include people of color but have a main focus on something else. They're commonly told stories with different faces, such as, so everybody's probably heard of Mary Had a Little Lamb, and they changed the name and said Monique Had a Little Lamb, and that's all they changed for the story.
Yeah, they don't make it culturally relevant at all. They just literally just change the character, and they don't change the main focus of the story or the theme. All they do is just change the skin color of the main character and assume that that's enough.
Yeah, they were pretty much just slapping a new cover on the book with a person of a different skin tone, and they said that was culturally relevant.
And the culturally specific text, the one we have back here, is generally considered the most effective because students can directly relate to it because it goes in depth on roles, traditions, and beliefs, just different aspects of a culture. And it's more relatable for students, and it'll keep them more engaged. And especially if they're more recent and if they're more relevant in the now, in today's age, it'll more likely keep students engaged in the text, and they'll overall be able to connect to it better and be able to learn more from it. And so then we have effective read-alouds. Effective read-alouds help students with reading, writing, speaking, and listening. Reading aloud greatly benefits students whose first language is not English. This gives them practice in their fluency and helps them build competency in the English language. It's not a good idea to put non-proficient English speakers on the spot during read aloud sessions in order not to make them feel uncomfortable, because if the student's uncomfortable, they're not going to be able to learn because they're not going to be in an environment where they feel safe.
So CLR myth and strategy. One common misconception of CLR is that in order to incorporate it into your instruction, you must throw out all of your other strategies. This is in fact not true. The point of CLR is not to replace instructional strategies, but to kind of blend and infuse them with what the teacher feels is most effective.
And that's what the guy was talking about. He was saying you want to infuse, you want to blend things together, you want to make it relevant, and you want the students to be able to relate to it, and they'll be able to learn more from it like that.
So what CLR teachers must do is find what works for them and their students. They need to use different strategies and texts in order to have an environment that engages all the students by using different texts and activities to reach a wider audience.
That's it.
Thank you.